They said his tent smelled of iron and fear. Beneath the endless Mongolian sky, where wind hissed across the steppe like a whispering curse, an emperor drafted an order that made even his generals tremble. It was not a law of conquest, but of possession, a rule that reached into the homes and hearts of his enemies, and into the beds of kings. Genghis Khan, the man the world would call the scourge of heaven, wrote his decree in silence. It was not enough to destroy an empire. He would unmake its bloodlines, reshape the very concept of loyalty, and brand obedience into the flesh of those who disobeyed. No warrior dared question it. To break this order was to vanish, name erased, clan dissolved, lineage forgotten. Yet behind the legend of brutality lies a stranger truth. This was not just lust or vengeance, but a terrifying system of power that turned women into symbols and men into ghosts. At the dawn of the 13th century, the steppe birthed a new kind of empire, one that did not conquer for wealth alone, but for blood. Temujin, known to history as Genghis Khan, believed that a defeated foe was not truly vanquished until his memory was rewritten. He had seen betrayal from every side, tribes that swore allegiance and then slaughtered his kin, rulers who offered peace only to poison the gift. To rule such a world, he needed more than armies. He needed a system of obedience that penetrated the private sphere, a law that ruled not just the sword, but the womb. By the end of the story, you'll understand how this order, whispered through yurts and palaces alike, changed the destiny of nations, and why even centuries later, the echo of that command still stains royal bloodlines from Persia to Russia. He began with the defeated Khwarezm Empire. Its sultan, once the richest ruler between the Caspian and the Indus, had fled in disgrace. His capital burned, his governors executed, his heirs scattered. Among the spoils were the women of the royal household, not as prizes, but as instruments of humiliation and absorption. Genghis Khan had no interest in ornamentation. What he desired was legacy. Each union, forced, political, or symbolic, was meant to erase the blood of the old dynasty and replace it with his own. In Mongol belief, lineage was power. If your line carried the blood of Genghis, it was sanctified. If it didn't, you were disposable. Within his tent, decisions were made not by passion, but by cold arithmetic. Every conquered ruler's wife or daughter represented the collapse of another throne. To take her into his household, or assign her to one of his sons, was to bind the defeated to Mongol eternity. In this system, S3X was policy, and affection was irrelevant. Those who resisted were not slain immediately. Some were given to the lowest ranks as a message that nobility itself could be stripped and reassigned like property. Yet even his own men feared the scope of his will. When a general once kept a captive woman for himself, defying Khan's decree that she be presented to the imperial household, the man vanished by morning. His horses were taken, his banner burned, and his name stricken from the annals. It was said that his soul would wander nameless because no one dared speak it. Was this cruelty or strategy? The line blurred until both became indistinguishable. To rule a world of fractured tribes, Genghis made himself not only the father of nations, but of the generations to come, by force of decree and fear. By now, the order of the household had become unspoken law. The Yasa, the secret Mongol code, dictated absolute obedience to the Khan's will, extending to matters of marriage, inheritance, and reproduction. Every act of intimacy became an act of governance. When an enemy noblewoman entered the Mongol camp, her fate was not determined by mercy or appeal, but by calculation. Would her union strengthen the Khan's lineage or undermine it? The empire's chronicles speak in euphemisms. She was honored by the Khan, or taken into his protection. But behind those phrases lay a darker truth. Entire regions were assimilated through enforced alliances. Sons of Genghis ruled from Korea to Kiev, and countless families carried traces of his bloodline, not through affection, but through compliance with his law. It said that when a defeated general's wife refused to live under Mongol rule, she was not punished by death but condemned to solitude, her family's land redistributed, her name erased from prayer. For Genghis, destruction was not complete until history itself obeyed him. His sons inherited both his empire and his code. Joki, born of a union shrouded in suspicion, was often taunted by his brothers as not truly Mongol. Even Genghis himself doubted the boy's paternity, a cruel irony, since his own law had created the very uncertainty that haunted him. Blood, the tool of power, had become a curse. In this contradiction, the empire's moral foundation cracked. The same rule that had unified a continent now threatened to divide his own house. The Khan's mastery of others was total, but mastery of fate was not. As his empire spread west, the Khan's decree took on new forms. In conquered Persia, noble families were forced into ceremonial marriages with Mongol officials, their daughters paraded as signs of surrender. Chroniclers describe processions of veiled figures walking beneath banners marked with the falcon seal, symbols of both mercy and submission. Those who refused the union vanished without burial, erased not only from their lineage but from language itself. The Yasa had forbidden anyone, under pain of death, to touch what the Khan had claimed. Yet his own definition of claim was boundless. In his logic, all conquered lands, and all within them, were his inheritance. The wives of his enemies were symbols of broken resistance. To protect them under his household was both ritual and reminder. The empire's power extended beyond walls, beyond borders, even beyond the sanctity of private life. The darkest paradox of his rule was this: he considered such acts righteous. In Mongol cosmology, the Khan was chosen by the eternal blue sky, and to oppose his will was to defy heaven itself. Thus, even violation became sanctified by destiny. When priests and envoys protested, they were told, "The sky chose him, not you." And yet, among his closest advisors, there were murmurs. Was this truly divine justice or mortal arrogance? The question could never be spoken aloud. Even suspicion was dangerous. The Khan had ears in every camp, eyes in every tent. The punishment for disloyalty was not just death, but dissolution, your entire bloodline expunged. Your children renamed and reassigned. As age overtook him, the shadow of his law grew longer. He began to fear the rebellion of his own blood, the sons born from his decrees. How many of them truly carried his spirit? How many resented the name they bore? The empire that began with his vision now pulsed with silent resentment. After Genghis Khan's death in 1227, his successors attempted to formalize his hidden decrees into dynastic policy. The empire fractured into khanates, each claiming to preserve his code but interpreting it differently. In the Golden Horde, noble marriages became tools of diplomacy. In the Yuan court of China, they became pageantry. Yet the ghost of his original law, the order that none dared break, remained. Legends grew around it. Some said his ghost appeared in dreams to punish those who disobeyed his rules of lineage. Others whispered that any man who took a woman claimed by the Khan's blood would be cursed to madness. These tales, half history, half warning, preserve the fear that once governed millions. Historians now estimate that up to 1 in 200 people alive today descend from his line, a staggering testament not to love, but to policy. His decree achieved what no empire could: immortality through the manipulation of human legacy. But beneath that triumph lies an emptiness. The Mongol world, so obsessed with lineage, ultimately devoured its own families. Jochi's descendants warred with their cousins. The empire splintered under the weight of inherited suspicion. The same blood that once united them became poisoned. In the ruins of Karakoram, travelers later found inscriptions half erased by sand, fragments of the old code. One line, barely legible, seemed to summarize his reign: "He who commands the womb commands the world." Centuries later, empires rose and fell, but none wielded lineage as a weapon quite like he did. Genghis Khan transformed S3X, family, and faith into instruments of empire, forging a dynasty that outlived his cities. His secret order, the one no one dared to question, became the silent architecture of conquest. Power did not end with the battlefield. It began in the blood that followed, and as the wind still howls across the Mongolian plains, carrying the dust of erased names, one truth lingers: the greatest conquests are not of land or gold, but of memory. Next time, we open another sealed chapter, the forbidden tomb of the Ming concubines buried alive for loyalty.